Okay, I'm going to talk about how to cite a podcast episode in your Works Cited page in MLA style. So in this first example, you'll notice that the host's name is last name, comma, first name, comma, and then the word host. Most podcasts have hosts, but if that doesn't apply to your podcast, for example, MLA also uses the example of narrator, you can put another title there that makes sense. The next thing that comes up after you put a period is the title of the actual podcast episode. That goes in quotation marks and it is capitalized headline style. So the and route are capitalized here. This is followed by a comma, not a period. Next we have the name of the whole podcast here. Notice that that is in italics. It is also capitalized headline style, so they don't capitalize the when it's in the middle, but dark is capitalized, in is capitalized. This is a podcast that has seasons and episode numbers. Not all podcasts will, but this one does. So if your podcast has seasons and episodes, you want to write the season number, the episode number, just like this with commas. This podcast also comes from a media publishing company, American Public Media. So if your podcast is part of a company, put that there as well, followed by a comma. And then next up, you want the date that the podcast was originally published. Notice MLA date format, which means the date itself, the month, and then the year, followed by the comma. And then you want to find a web address or URL for the actual podcast where someone could copy and paste it or click on it and actually find the episode that you're using. Next up, I'm going to show you how to cite a slightly different podcast episode. One thing that's different is this one has two hosts. So this is a good example of how to write that. The first host's name, will have the last name, comma, followed by the first name, comma. But then the second name you write in regular order, first name, last name. That's just how MLA likes it. Followed by a comma, word hosts, period. Next up, we have the name of the episode, capitalized headline style, followed by a comma. Next up, we have the name of the podcast, maintenance phase. Notice that this is in italics, also first words capitalized, followed by a comma. This one does not have a company associated with it. It's just people put their own podcast up on the internet, so you don't need a company if one doesn't exist. This also is not a show that has seasons or not a show that numbers their episodes. They just title them, so we can leave that out. Next up, we do have the publication date. Notice, again, MLA date format, longer named months get abbreviated like so, and followed by a comma, and then followed by a web address to where we could get to the podcast episode on the internet. The last thing I just want to call your attention to is the general formatting of a Works Cited page. Notice Works Cited at the top. Notice double spacing, hanging indent, and Times New Roman 12-point font. That's what MLA style likes. Also, make sure your sources are listed in alphabetical order by whatever comes first.